My driving was valued at over $1 million for F2.
What a brilliant drive from Emil Bernstorff, who wins in Italy.
Today, I have 9K iRating, and that puts me in the top 0.02% in the world. With my experience racing both real and sim, I've put together 11 reasons why sim racing is actually more fair, competitive, and enjoyable than real life racing. Starting with the big one, cost. To make it to the top of real-life motorsport, you need to spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if not tens of millions, just to make it. In sim racing, if you want to compete with the best, you have to spend at most $10,000, and many people have done that for cheaper. Even at the entry level, the cost difference is huge. Entry-level car races start at about $10,000 per season. In the sim world, the cost is a fraction of that. Assuming you have a computer, you can get started with $210 for a wheel and game. Okay, sim. You could even race on a $60 controller. With the barrier to entry being so comparatively low, it gives almost anyone the chance to go racing. Which brings me on to my next point, competition. It turns out that if you let anyone with a basic wheel and mid-tier computer compete, you have a much bigger talent pool than if you restrict entry to millionaires and above. At every step on the junior single-seater ladder, or pyramid, I would notice that competition from karting to F2 would not get tougher, just better funded. The system filters money, not talent. Sim racing doesn't have that problem. You'll find that only the best drivers achieve the highest ratings, and there is a much greater depth of competition. Right now, we have the ideal reference with Max Verstappen. He's probably the most dedicated and capable driver in both real and sim racing worlds right now. When the car allows it, he dominates the F1 grid. But when he races in iRacing, he's not clearing his teammates by 7/10 a lap. The gap is instead a few hundredths, or maybe a tenth or two on a good day. He's still at the very front, but he has much more direct competition on sim than he does in real life. Obviously, it's very difficult to give a like-for-like comparison. There are so many more factors going on in the real world, which brings me on to another great positive for sim racing: equipment. On a sim racing grid, all the cars are identical. In real life, you can have magic engines, dodgy chassis, and richer teams with better prepared, faster cars. Such a big part of real life paddock talk is taken up by mentions of equipment advantages and politics or team favoritism. Sim racing avoids all of that by giving you an even playing field. Just by signing up to any fixed setup race, you're guaranteed to be driving the winning car, or at least an exact copy of it. Having said that, it would be unfair not to mention the role that equipment does have in sim racing. A $200 racing wheel clamped to a desk running on a 15-year-old PC will not give you the same opportunities as a full 10K esports setup. Expensive equipment does play its part in the sim racing world, but it is far more attainable than real-world racing upgrades or updates. Having said that, you can still enjoy 90% of the experience in sim racing with entry-level gear. Remember that every F1 driver started in a go-kart, and there was no way they were ready to hop straight into F1 from the beginning. You can take everything completely at your own pace. That brings us nicely onto pressure and stress. The racing environment at a high level is incredibly stressful. In my experience in junior formulas, almost every team and driver is operating at the limit of their financial capabilities. They all need to win to maximize their chance of surviving. Unless you are constantly winning or have an endless amount of money, you risk just getting replaced. It can feel like someone's judging you at every moment. Whether you should spend more time in the gym, doing track walks, talking to engineers, looking over data, past races, onboards, anything. If you're not performing every single race, your career may be over permanently. High-level sim racing esports can put a lot of pressure on their drivers, but even if they do drop you, it doesn't stop you from participating in sim racing. You know, these sorts of high stakes can be exhilarating, but for a long period of time, they are exhausting. It also makes it harder to make friends, which brings us on to community. The sim racing community is one of its biggest strengths. As a personal example, I started streaming my races on Twitch in 2020. I quickly started to enjoy sim racing more than I ever did real life racing. The community as a whole is very supportive. Sure, you will get people screaming in voice chat and some elitist mindsets surfacing online, but they're not representative of sim racers as a whole. People are just excited to share their passion with others and help each other improve. It gets more competitive at the top levels, but even there, I have never heard of teammates turning against each other like they do so often in real-life series like F1. This is not to say that the community of real-life racing can't be great. You can definitely make some great friends in the real environment, but it can often feel like a work social rather than actually hanging out with some buddies.
An astute observation has led to laughter.
Now, point number 6, track time. Real-life racing is incredibly time inefficient. Only a minuscule amount of your time at the track is actually spent driving a car. In my time in FIA F3/GP3, we would have just over 2 hours of driving per weekend. That's it. For 9 weekends, if you don't include pre-season testing, that's 21 hours a year. In 2026, some drivers will be paying 1.5 million euros to drive for a grand total of 27 hours. And that's assuming you're driving for the whole green flag duration, which nobody does. If we're to work this out, it boils down to $16 a second, almost $1,000 a minute. You could literally buy a full professional sim racing rig every 10 minutes of driving. In sim, the racing comes to you. Once you have the setup, the driving time is completely unlimited. In iRacing, you can race many of the best drivers in the world, almost any time of day, any day of the year. Which brings us to convenience. In the real world, if you want to race an F1 car, you need to basically dedicate your entire life to it from the age of 7. In sim racing, you dedicate 10 minutes to find the car on iRacing or Assetto Corsa and a popular race slot or league to join. And off you go. You can race F1, prototypes, GTs, Mazdas, anything. And I mean, in Assetto Corsa, really anything. You can hop into a practice session literally anytime, and you have the option to just enter races for fun, joyride or cruise in your favorite cars, or super sweat it out and try and win everything. If you make a mistake, you can just reset. In real life, everything is much more serious. Even entering a race for fun will cost thousands, already putting pressure on you to make the most of it and avoiding extra costs by bringing the car back undamaged. All this extra stress and time pressure makes it hard to truly enjoy taking a car to its absolute limit. This takes us on to finding the flow. In my experience, racing is one of the best ways to experience flow state. It is when you're pushing to your limit, but not over. There is a Senna quote about this exact phenomenon.
I suddenly realized that I was no longer driving it conscious, and I was in a different dimension for me.
Senna will likely only have experienced this a few times in his life while racing. But with sim racing's unlimited track time, you can tap into this so much more often. You could be racing an endurance stint, slowly catching the car in front, lap by lap, or you could be hot lapping your favorite car track combination, trying to incrementally improve your lines and speed through every corner. Regardless of what it is, everything just melts away, and the only thing that matters is you, the car, and the track. Number 9, fitness. So, driving a race car in real life can require a high level of fitness, especially in high G-force open wheelers. The average person would simply not be able to drive an Indy car for much longer than a few minutes. The sheer neck and arm strength required to withstand the G-forces, bumps, and the extreme temperatures in the cockpit will get overwhelming. Real-life drivers regularly have to spend long sessions in the gym training their bodies, trying to simulate the same conditions the body goes through in a race. Sim racers, on the other hand, have the luxury of air conditioning, fans, no G-forces, and the option to turn down the steering strength anytime you want if you get tired. Now, speaking of the physical aspect, we of course cannot ignore safety. This is another obvious point, but it's definitely worth saying. Although motorsports has proved its safety drastically in the last 50 years, there is still the inherent risk of traveling at high speeds around a racetrack. It can never be 100% safe. Sim racing, with its real-life top speed of precisely 0 kilometers an hour, doesn't have to worry about any of this. Aside from the occasional force feedback-induced broken finger or deep vein thrombosis from prolonged sitting, there really isn't that much to be scared of. Now, the final point, the sporting element. I could go on for hours about this topic, and it's actually one of the main reasons why I don't race anymore. But I will keep it brief for the sake of this video. We have already established the real life motorsport is dominated by money. But even if you do reach the top level, many of the series are plagued by commercial interests diluting the sport. Things like BOP, amateur driver requirements, pay drivers, overcomplicated cars and engines, just to mention a few. The focus for most racing series is not to find and celebrate the best drivers and teams. It is to generate enough money to simply stay alive and/or to make the organizers money. Most racing series are chasing funding from manufacturers, host nations, and most commonly from paying drivers. Sim racing doesn't have to worry about any of this. You don't need to convince a manufacturer that despite making a bad car, they can still win races. You don't need to pay an amateur drivers to make up the numbers. You don't need to run a reverse grid race so that the midfielders and backmarkers get the chance to win. You don't need to race boring, overcomplicated engines to satisfy corporate quotas. You can just run a race and let the best drivers and teams win. In conclusion, now that we've looked at all the ways that sim racing kicks ass, I hope that you have a better understanding of the true value that sim racing brings to the world motorsport scene. Yes, it doesn't have the smells, the atmosphere, and the thrill of pushing a real car to its limit, but it brings an intense level of competition right to your doorstep. Motorsport can finally be enjoyed by the masses from the comfort of their own home. You can make great friends and enjoy racing for what it really is supposed to be. Right now, we can enjoy each separate discipline as they are. Real racing for the spectacle, and sim racing for the competition and accessibility. So next time you hop into a sim racing session, remember that while you may prefer to be stepping into a real life race car, at least you don't have to dedicate your entire life to just doing a few laps. I believe sim racing is undervalued. I'm going to make a lot more videos about this and sim racing in general. Remember to subscribe if you want to see that. Leave a comment if you think I missed anything, and I'll see you in the next one.